Welcome to the Tea with the Masters podcast, starring 4 of the world's leading martial arts experts. First up, we have the Warrior, world-breaking champion, holder of multiple world records, professional teacher, mentor, and World Martial Arts Congress representative for the Republic of Ireland, Sifu Keith Fanning. Next is the Scholar, author, speaker, mentor, business and life coach, and president of the USA Hapkido Union and USA representative for the World Martial Arts Congress, Grandmaster Richard Hackworth. We also have the Technician, founder of JaeMuKwan Hapkido, vice president of the USA Hapkido Union, member of the World Martial Arts Congress Education Committee, and Korean Martial Arts Instructors Association Florida State Representative, Grandmaster Jeannotte. And let's not forget the philosopher, author, language, culture, and leadership development teacher, and spokesmodel for the World Martial Arts Congress, Instructor Ma. We invite you to like and share this video with your friends and subscribe to this channel so that you never miss an exciting episode.
Hi folks, Sifu Keith Fanning here, founder of the Guardian program, Grandmaster of Blue Dragon Ming Chuan, and I'd like to talk to you today on my segment about some of the stuff we teach inside the Guardian program. It's about the mindset, it's about, self-defense and what people really perceive to be self-defense. Part of what we teach is attack as a defense. So a good offense is a better defense. So we could go through all those things, and we've heard them all before, but it's if you're hard to surprise, you're harder to attack. So if you already know your situational awareness when you walk into a room, where your exits are, where your choke points are, where your, obstacles are, it now all of a sudden makes your life ultimately easier, because we're not having to worry about the simple things of if something happens, if somebody takes you by surprise, you now have to figure out where all those things are, where you already know them. Now you're not surprised. And it's something that we like to do a lot of, is teaching people to be aware of their surroundings. We can all be guilty of walking into a room and checking our phone, or opening a text message, replying to an email, whatever, but you lose concentration for that moment, and that's when you're not focused on what's really happening. You're not focused on who's in the room with you. There's an old thing where, because I was a door security bouncer, we always made sure we stood with our back to the wall so that nobody could get in around behind you. Little things like that still carry through today, that I do, not even consciously, it's kind of subconsciously, I just do it now, unless I trust the person I'm with, I will always sit with my back to the wall. If I trust the person who's sitting opposite me, then I don't mind where I sit, because I know they're watching my back. It's funny how much even my wife Sharon has picked up on this now, and she knows I'm comfortable sitting with her watching my back, so she doesn't mind sitting with her back to the wall. So it's just one of those things where, but when it comes down to it, 90% of people in a study have shown that they lose concentration in a room. The second they walk in a room, they shake hands with somebody, they say hello, and all of a sudden their concentration's gone on who's in the room, where's the exit. They might turn, they might give somebody a hug, and in that embrace, they've lost sight of a possible threat or a possible choke point. So the other side of it too is that we can now actively make the choke point our defensive system. So if you see, we're going to pick a party here, and you got 2 tables quite close to each other with chairs back to back, and it's quite a choke point to get through those chairs to the end of the table. Well, that's a good place to sit, because now you're creating a choke point for somebody that has to come to you that way. Alternatively, you're sitting at the other end of that, where you are out of the choke point, makes it easy to escape. So you've got to look at which one benefits you at the time. So this is all part of risk assessment, dynamic risk assessment. These are all the things that we teach. And again, it's something I like to talk about with people, because I find when you do what's called a dynamic risk assessment, you walk into a room, instantly you spot your exits, you spot your chokes, and you spot your alternative exit. Is there an alternative exit? Is there more than one door out? Is there one door in, one door out? So when you do that dynamic risk assessment, it takes all of a couple of seconds, sometimes a fraction of a second. You'll see it, you'll understand it. But then what happens is people see all these things, then something happens. Now a threat of violence has happened. You've got fight or flight. You've got panic. You've got, did I do my homework correctly? Did I spot the choke points? Did I spot everything? So these are all the things that you got to look at. And you got to say, how often do you walk into a room quite happy with the fact that you spotted everything? Or, not everything, but you spotted most things. We can't account for everything because there's changes can happen. But doing a dynamic risk assessment is one of the priorities in every room I walk into. Then I've also got the prioritize of the biggest opponent. So I'll give you a quick one. I had a guy come into my school. I knew he was a martial artist. He was there to talk martial arts. I wasn't sure of who he was or how much of a threat he would be. I just knew that he was fairly well on in martial arts. As he walked in the door, I spotted a slight limp. So I said, there's my choke, there's my upper hand, if you like. So if something was to happen and if something was to go wrong with this guy and he was to try and get aggressive, I would move to the side that I spotted the limp. I would attack that position and attack that point and where that limp is, because now he's just showing me a weak point, if you like. So this was my dynamic risk assessment. It turns out the guy was a really nice guy. We got on really well. We hit it off well, and we're still friends today. But we laughed afterwards because as quick as I'd done a risk assessment on him, he had done the exact same on me. So that shows you that the mentality was there to make sure that we were in a safe space. Now, we can talk about the difference between martial arts for combat and martial arts for sport. Martial arts for sport, you're not really going to be looking at dynamic risk assessments. You're going to be looking at, how's the best way to score a point and stop points being scored, so on and so forth. I'm not getting into that dispute because that could open a whole can of worms. But in realistic terms of what I teach through the Blue Dragon and through the Guardian program, it's about making a risk assessment on a possible opponent or attacker, making a risk assessment on my surroundings, and that I know exactly where, the exits and entries are. I know where the choke points are. So I could keep going over and over and over. But the whole idea is that once you do this, you become less of a target because you've spotted the possible pitfalls and downfalls. There's in my notes for this podcast, I had written one quick thing, and it sounds hard hitting, but it is real. Be hard to kill, but be harder to surprise. So that kind of gives you the idea of, if you're trained well enough, you'll be able to defend yourself. But hopefully, if you do the direct dynamic risk assessment that you need, you don't have to defend yourself. And that's kind of where it's going. That's the idea behind this podcast today. Thank you for listening to my segment with Tea with the Masters. If you have any questions or you'd like any follow-ups or you'd like to talk about some stuff, you'll find me across all social media platforms, Sifu Fanning or Sifu Keith Fanning, one or the other. Website is sifufanning.com and email is sifufanning@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. Take care.
Hello, I am Richard Hackworth, author of the book, Be a Life Champion, The Martial Arts Way. I am the USA Director for the Korean Martial Arts Instructors Association and the USA Director for the World Martial Arts Congress. I am also the host of the annual Hapkido Instructors Course and Conference in the USA, sanctioned by the USA Hapkido Union and the Korean Martial Arts Instructors Association. Over the years, I have earned the reputation of being a scholar of the history, culture, and traditions of the Korean martial arts. I hope that you will find my part of the show informative and educational. As the president of the USA Hapkido Union, I love to share my thoughts and beliefs about martial arts on this show. Today's topic is the silent oath in the martial arts. It explains why dedication is proven, not spoken. In the sacred space of the martial arts studio, the air carries the weight of history and the scent of hard-earned effort. Throughout my decades of practice, I have seen thousands of students pass through these doors. Many arrive with fiery proclamations of their passion, yet only a few remain to see the sunset of their journey. The lesson is simple, yet it is the hardest one to master. In martial arts, words are wind. Action is stone. That is why we have the illusion of the spoken word. It is easy to speak of discipline when you are rested and comfortable. It is easy to claim dedication on the day you receive a new rank. But the dojang does not respond to talk. It is a mirror that reflects only the truth of your movement. One of my teachers, Grandmaster Jong-sung Kim, would say that a person who speaks of mastery but rarely sets foot on the mat is chasing a ghost. You cannot embody a discipline you do not practice. The bridge between who you are and who you wish to become is built with consistency, not conversation. And I would wholeheartedly agree. We must remember that daily practice is the anatomy of true dedication. True dedication is a quiet force. It does not need an audience or an announcement. It is proven in the small, often invisible moments. The power of presence. Dedication begins the moment you bow onto the mat, especially on the days when your body is tired and your mind seeks excuses. The beauty of repetition. It is found in the 1,000th execution of a basic strike, performed with the same focus as the first. The resilience of spirit. It is the choice to push through fatigue when the lungs burn and the limbs grow heavy. These moments are where character is forged. When you are consistent, the art ceases to be a hobby and becomes a part of your soul. Your presence begins to radiate the authority of what you have earned through sweat. Through my teachers and mentors, I have learned that this is part of the master's path. Every Grandmaster you see today was once a white belt who simply refused to stop returning. We did not reach this stage because of promises we made. We reached it because of the hours we spent refining the basics in the silence of the morning or the heat of the afternoon. A belt is not tied around your waist because of what you said, but because of what you did. So this is your call to action. The martial arts school asks nothing of your ego. It asks only for your practice. Real strength is the humility to let your actions speak for you, and the quiet resolve to keep showing up when no one is watching. Stop telling the world what you intend to do. Step onto the mat, bow, and show us. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Remember, the journey to the heart of Hapkido begins with a single step. Get started today. Don't go away. We have more to come.
Hello, I am Grandmaster Jeannotte, the Vice President of the USA Hapkido Union, founder of JaeMuKwan Hapkido, member of the World Martial Arts Congress Education Committee, and the Florida representative to the Korean Martial Arts Instructors Association. This part of the show is sponsored by the Korean Martial Arts Instructors Association. Learn more at www.kmaia.org. Today I want to talk with you about improving your joint locks. There are different ways to make a person submit in Hapkido. One technique is the joint lock, which involves manipulating the opponent's joint in such a way that it reaches their maximal degree of motion. There are 5 types, namely arm locks, leg locks, small joint manipulation, spinal locks, and wrist locks. Unfortunately, some people don't do this right, making what they are doing ineffective, and here are the reasons why. Poor mechanics is very common. To prevent this from happening, you have to learn the mechanics of this technique so you know precisely where to put your strength, specifically, most of your body weight into one joint. Your joint lock will also be unsuccessful if your opponent is very flexible. Although rare, some people are able to bend their arms backward to almost a 90-degree angle, or bend their wrist backward and touch the palm of their hands using their forearms. Another possible reason is that your opponent has a high tolerance for pain. This means that even if you are able to do it correctly, that person is still able to withstand it. If the person does not seem to have a high tolerance for pain, it is possible that your opponent is mentally deranged or high on a drug. When this happens, you have to try another submission technique like a chokehold, because they will be unconscious if they do not submit to you. A good example is the rear carotid restraint. This is done by reaching deep in front of the opponent toward his stomach and molding your biceps against the side of his neck. You then bend your arm so that your elbow is pointed straight down, and the crook of your elbow is directly below his trachea. Now reach up high and grab your own shoulder or simply grasp a handful of his shirt. Your biceps and the inside of your forearm should press on the sides of the neck. With your free hand behind his head, use it to push the back of his head forward while pushing with the elbow that encircles his neck into his chest, as though you are squeezing it towards his spine. Shrug his shoulders up like you are hanging him and hold it for a few seconds until his body goes limp. As mentioned before, it is not often that you encounter an opponent that is flexible. Another reason why your joint lock is not working could be they had a previous injury in the same spot before. The last reason why your joint lock is not effective could be a combination of any of the reasons stated. Of the different reasons mentioned as to why your joint lock does not work, poor mechanics happens to be the only thing that is under your control. The rest really depends on your opponent, and if you can't handle the situation, the best thing to do will be to run and get help. Hapkido is not the only martial art that uses joint locks to make an opponent submit. This is also used in Aikido, catch wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and judo, to name a few. If you want to get this right, you have to practice this technique regularly, so it can be used when a threat presents itself. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you will enjoy other episodes of the show here on this channel.
Hello, I am Instructor Ma. I am the World Martial Arts Congress Language, Culture, and Character Development teacher. This portion of the show is sponsored by worldmartialartscongress.cn. While you are here, be sure to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share this video with a friend. It helps more than you know. Now on with the show. Today I am discussing how to find your path to the mat. Believe me, I know that the juggle is real. Between chasing a toddler who thinks the stairs are a jungle gym, keeping my marriage from becoming a series of "Did you buy milk?" texts, staying on top of my doctoral thesis, and leading my students on the mat, I get it. Life isn't just busy. It's a high-stakes game of Tetris. Often, the first thing we drop when the schedule gets tight is our own training. We tell ourselves it's selfish to take that hour for ourselves. But here's the truth. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Training isn't just another chore. It's the fuel that allows you to be a better parent, partner, and professional. Here are my 10 tried and tested tips for making time for martial arts or any training when your calendar is screaming for mercy. 1. The non-negotiable calendar entry. Treat your training sessions like a high-stakes board meeting or a pediatrician appointment. Why it matters. If you wait to see if you have time at the end of the day, you won't. By scheduling it, you mentally shift training from an option to a commitment. 2. The 15-minute micro session. On days when a full hour at the martial arts studio is impossible, do 15 minutes of forms, kata/pumse, or conditioning at home. Why it matters. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Short bursts keep your muscle memory sharp and maintain the habit, even when life is chaotic. 3. Negotiate the switch off with your partner. Communication is key. I sit down with my husband every Sunday to look at our week. We trade off. I'll handle bath time Tuesday if I can hit the 6 p.m. class. Why it matters. It prevents resentment. When your partner knows the schedule and supports it, you can train with a clear head instead of feeling mom guilt. 4. Use your dead time. I've been known to practice my footwork while waiting for the microwave, or do calf raises while reading a textbook. Why it matters. As a student and professional, you have in-between moments. Reclaiming those 5-minute pockets adds up to significant supplemental training over a week. 5. Pack your bag the night before. The morning of scramble is the biggest killer of motivation. Have your gi, belt, and water bottle in the car or by the door. Why it matters. You remove the friction of decision making. When you're tired after work, having the bag already packed makes it harder to make excuses. 6. Embrace the early bird or night owl grind. Sometimes, the only time the toddler is asleep and the emails have stopped is 5:30 a.m. or 9 p.m. Why it matters. Training when the world is quiet ensures you won't be interrupted. It's a dedicated space for your mind to transition from worker/parent to martial artist. 7. Involve the family when possible. If I can't get to the gym, I'll do my stretches on the floor while my toddler plays with his blocks nearby. Sometimes he even tries to mimic my blocks. Why it matters. It sets a healthy example for your children. They see that physical health and discipline are valued parts of adult life, not something that disappears when you grow up. 8. Leverage active commuting or lunch breaks. If you work in an office, use 20 minutes of your lunch break for a quick shadowboxing session or a brisk walk. Why it matters. It breaks up the sedentary office fog. You'll return to your desk with more mental clarity and focus than a third cup of coffee could ever provide. 9. Forgive yourself for B-grade days. Some days, your training will be a 10 out of 10. Other days, you'll be exhausted and barely move. That's okay. Why it matters. Perfectionism is the enemy of progress. If you think you have to be 100% on to train, you'll skip the days you're at 40%. Showing up at 40% is infinitely better than 0%. 10. Remember your why. When I'm overwhelmed with schoolwork and parenting, I remind myself that the mat is where I find my center. Why it matters. Training provides the stress relief and discipline needed to handle the rest of your life. You aren't taking time away from your family or job. You are investing in the person who shows up for them. In closing, I want you to know that the perfect time to train doesn't exist. You have to make it, protect it, and respect it. See you on the mat! I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I invite you to read my articles in World Martial Arts Media Magazine. For more information on joining the World Martial Arts Congress or getting our character development program for your school, please visit our page at www.facebook.com/World Martial Arts Congress. It would mean a lot to me if you liked and commented on this video. Thank you for watching!
You have been listening to the Tea with the Masters podcast. We hope that you enjoyed our show, and we look forward to having you join us again next month for another exciting episode. Be sure to browse our channel and subscribe for more exciting and educational content.